Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Norcal APEX Accelerator's webinar, Your Path to Government Contracting Success. Thank you all for joining us today. And my name is Amanda Anderson. I'm the program coordinator for Norcal APEX Accelerator and the host for today's event. And I'm joined by our fantastic procurement specialist, James Forrest, who has put together this in-depth presentation about what you need to do and what you need to know to find your success in government contracting. So I will go ahead and pass it over to James. I did just launch a poll. We just want to get a feel for what your experience level with government contracting is. So while James goes on to the agenda, go ahead and enter your answer into the poll, and we'll review it a little bit later.
Great. And no wrong answers here, folks. We deal with all kinds of clients with different experience levels, so feel free to hop in. And just a note here that when we put these things together, the information is accurate to the best of our knowledge at this time. Things change. You can't step in the same river twice. So just keep that in mind when you're going through these things, and honestly, all kinds of presentations. So we do our best, and this is our current understanding of the government contracting market. So keep that in mind. And let's go ahead. It looks like we got some good participation in the intro poll. The idea today, real quick, is to go over what your journey to government contracting success might look like. It's kind of our recommendation of how things might flow for you. And it's also about how our organization can help you. So we're going to go into our organization and our services. And so we really want it to be kind of a deep dive, a little bit of a sequel to our intro webinar. If you've ever been to that one, it's a monthly series we do. And so this is an opportunity to go a little deeper into the steps for success. So let's just go ahead and launch this poll here. We got 80% participated. That's great. And so we asked, what's your experience level with government contracting? And it looks like almost half of you, 43%, no experience. About 30% just starting out. We got a couple of you with some experience, a couple of you fairly experienced, and a couple of you very, very experienced. So that's wonderful. That's a good spread. That kind of bell curve towards the bottom with less experience is more or less what we're looking for in an event like this. Everybody is welcome. There'll be a lot of information for beginners, and there'll definitely be things you'll get out of it if you're on the more experienced end as well. There's always room for improvement. So today we're going to go over explanation of our benefits at Apex Client Services, talk about eligibility and things like that. I'll give a little bit of an overview of the contracting process. This is not an introduction to government contracting. This is a more in-depth session today. We'll get our hands on some good things today. I'm going to go over the 4 phases of contracting preparation as I see them, and many of which I think are a little bit overlooked. And that will include tips and tricks for maximizing your efforts. And that's really what this is all about, so you don't spin your wheels, and how to stay organized. So we've got some hands-on documents for that. And I will demonstrate some websites, especially our own, and show some resources for contracting. And then we'll wrap it up with a Q&A. So I think it's going to be fun for everybody. I'm looking forward to this. I'll launch into the first part just talking about our own program. APEX Accelerator. APEX doesn't stand for anything. We used to be known as PTAC, PTAC, which was a good old acronym, standing for Procurement Technical Assistance Center, but now we're APEX Accelerator. And we are a nonprofit center, part of a whole network of centers across the country. As you can see, this nice colorful map on the right. There's a bunch of us just in California alone. We are the green area up here, this service area. We've got 15 counties, all the Bay Area, and then up the coast. But there's 96 of our centers all across the country. We're all independently managed. We're under the same funding structure. And so we get funding from the DoD as well as the California state government, and we provide all of our services for free at no cost. So we like to say you've already paid with your tax dollars. So that's kind of our deal. In FY21, Apex Accelerators in general served over 56,000 clients and helped them win more than 24 billion with a B in government contracts. We had a nice healthy swath of that. In 2022, our clients won more than 900 million in contracts. So that's getting real close to the big billion mark just in our 15 counties alone. So we're really proud of being able to help out with that. Before I go more into this, I want to talk about some eligibility criteria. So in order to be eligible as a client for Norcal APEX, you have to have an established business. So that means you need your business license, if applicable. If you're you need your articles of organization or articles of incorporation. If you're an LLC or a corporation or S Corp, B Corp. Have your bank account all set up, and then preferably have some sales that you're actually doing business. You're not a newborn. And we want you to have a business plan, or at least be have something that serves the purpose of a business plan, have some strategy, and we want you to be able to do some research ahead of time. We'll go over the readiness checklist a little bit later, but once you're in the door with us, you put an application and then you're eligible for one-on-one counseling. So a team of procurement specialists such as myself can meet with you one-on-one. Most of this is done online. We got a big service area. I know for those of you from out of state, it doesn't look very big, but it takes about 5 hours, maybe actually about 7 hours to drive across this. So you don't have to go anywhere for our meetings, although we do have some office hours on occasion in the Bay Area and up in Humboldt County. We can also set you up with a custom bid matching profile. I'll talk more about that a little bit later, but basically you put in some keywords and some geographic criteria into a system that your advisor will help you fill out. And then this system goes out online and searches a bunch of different government contracting bid databases for open current bids, and it'll gather those and send you links to them in one email a day if they find any that match your criteria that you work out with your procurement specialist. So that's pretty neat. It's a paid service. We just offer it to you for free. And this third one, because you're here today, we offer resources and trainings. So this is an example of that. We have a bunch of them coming up, always more in the pike. Amanda's done a phenomenal job putting together a calendar for next several months, up to a year of trainings. So please stay updated and keep joining these. You never want to stop being a student in government contracting. You can sign up with this link here, norcalptac.org/join. And if you're not in our service area, we had Indiana, we had Texas, some other folks, or even other parts of California outside of these counties you see on the map here. Click on this link here, aptac-us.org/findaptac, or just Google your state and maybe your county name, and then the words APEX Accelerator or PTAC, and you should find the right resources. Okay, so I want to start with what we don't cover. A lot of this webinar is about dispelling some myths and helping redirect your efforts so that you're not wasting your time. You have a valuable time is a really valuable resource for you as business owners, and we understand that, and that's kind of our purpose here today, is to help save you time. So we don't do advocacy, so we're not going to go out and advocate for you. There's better ways to get that done. We don't offer legal advice. You don't have to talk to a lawyer about that. We don't offer tax advice. Talk to your CPA. Pricing. Nobody knows the pricing in your industry as well as you, ideally. So we don't give a lot of advice, that should be higher or lower, or that here's your profit margin, what you want to get. This is all up to you. We can provide some tips on general overview about how to price and how to put together a pricing proposal, but we don't actually offer concrete information on what to price. General business advice. We are not general business counselors. We've got another program that's kind of our cousin program, the Small Business Development Center. We've got a lot of others I'll go over a little bit later. They're all great resources for general business advice. And just in general, we don't do the tasks for you. There are certainly paid consultants that will do that. And if you can spare that money, that's great, and go for it. If you want someone to say, hey, do my WOSB, do my SAM registration, they'll get it done. We just make sure you pick a good company, because there are some disreputable ones that we've had some issues with from clients who've gotten their money taken. But there are options for that. We don't do that. We are here for coaching and support. We don't do kind of project management, admin assistance, that sort of thing. We're not here to organize your documents and all of that. And we just in general, we want you to take the lead. We are here to support your initiative, and that's what it's all about. We're kind of like a coach, and we're kind of like teachers. We're kind of like tutors. So we really coach on just about anything related to government contracting. So now that we're done with what we don't cover, we really do cover a lot. Kind of cradle to grave, as they say, in contracting, getting set up all the way through staying compliant and closing out on successful contracts. We will provide you an expert in government contracting who's been trained. A lot of folks have decades of experience, and they will be a regular dedicated point of contact for Zoom meetings, emails, phone calls, whatever works for the two of you. And we're happy to provide feedback on drafting documents like capability statements, bid proposals, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. So there's a lot we can do. We can refer you to folks in other fields if needed, other partner programs. As you know, we do workshops, and I will go over our website in a bit, so you'll see some of these things that are really helpful. Okay, so I want to leap in here. Imagine this scenario here where you've never done government work. You got a business, your sales are doing all right, maybe they've dipped a little bit and you're looking for other sources of revenue. Well, you got a friend who sends you an open bid on sam.gov. Let's say it's in janitorial, and it's due in 2 or 3 weeks. And so sam.gov is System for Award Management, and that's a federal database. And you get excited because, well, you can do that. And the office is only an hour away from your primary office. So you can clean these things. Government needs something and you can offer it. And that's a good thing, right? And there's some red tape because it's the government, and business in general is like that. But it should be possible to do in a couple of weeks, right? Go ahead and put in the chat what percentage of time do you think this works out with a winning bid? There's a little delay on getting folks to use the chat. Leaping into action. Let's see here. Oh, I'm in the Q&A here. Okay, this makes sense. 10%, 2%, 5%, 20%, 5%. I'm going to say you're all in the right ballpark. 12%, 10%. It's fairly low, and this is for a number of reasons. For one thing, sam.gov is a federal government, and so you're getting in the deep end. Federal government has small opportunities, and they have opportunities for small and emerging businesses, but it is not the most likely place to find entry-level contracting opportunities. Second of all, you haven't done contracting before, and you're rushing through the process. A couple of weeks getting everything set up is very quick, even if we're just talking about getting your SAM registration, much less any certifications that you might want in order to compete on a small business set-asides or things like that. And if it's not a small business set-aside, then you might have a big problem competing against the large companies that will come in and swoop up contracts. The government will set things aside for small businesses if they can, if they think there's enough small businesses that will do it in most industries. So if you're not registered in SAM and certified as small business, it might be hard for you. And there's just a lot of steps that you're going to be missing out if you try to rush through the process. So this is kind of one of the main things I want to get across to everyone today. Get a lot of clients, and this is totally normal, this makes sense, that are really eager to jump in and start winning. And you really have to be thinking not on the weeks scale, and maybe not even on the months scale, but more on the scale of a year and a half before you're really starting to have success in the government contracting marketplace. And that's a disappointment for a lot of folks, but it is an investment of your time. Government contracting can be super lucrative, but there's some steps you want to follow first. And so the first one we're going to talk about today is research. And so this is before you do all the registrations and certifications and everything, all the documents you're going to put together. You really want to research. You want to understand your market, understand your own business. We'll go into this in a second. Get organized and set up. And so I can't emphasize this enough. Being organized and having all your information ready is going to be in part a product of your research, but in part a product of your administrative systems. And it will make your journey so much easier if you can stay organized. And then I've also included in this category getting set up, which I mean registration, certification, things like that. Number 3 is marketing your business. Far too many people underestimate the amount of time that it takes to market your business in the government contracting sphere. It's often said that about 80% of your time after the initial stage of getting organized and set up will be spent marketing your business. And this is not a phase that ends. This is an ongoing activity, just like it is in the private sector. You don't just market and as a step and then you're done. So in marketing yourself in the contracting sphere is both the same and a bit different as in the private sector. So we've got a great webinar on capability statements from August you should check out. It goes a lot into marketing. I'll talk a little bit about it more today. And then, of course, the last step is bidding. And that's kind of what everyone's excited to hear about today. But we, well, I don't know if that's what we're not going to talk that much about bidding, actually, because it's really about the preparation. The 4th step is something we can help with, certainly. And by the time you get there, mostly just putting in perspective how to use your preparation to have a successful bid and how we can help. So boop, there's you stepping up. All right, so number 1, these are the 4 phases of contracting preparation. The first one, as I mentioned, is research. And these first 3 items here, I'm going to go do a website demo on our own website, but I'll go over them real quickly first. So readiness checklist. And I just want to remind folks that, you know, we clearly think government contracting is a great option. It's lucrative. It's totally doable. We have clients that have success all the time, but it's not for everybody. And you want to be critically thinking about this. Beware of, hear a lot of folks that get kind of referred to us or get inspired from YouTube videos, or people that are selling courses and things like that. And you know, they're really saying, put in a couple months of work and you could be making this money. Look, I did this and I'm reselling these or whatever have you. And just to let folks know, you know, a lot of people are going to try to sell you a concept of success. And so you really want to be critical about the sources where you're getting information and think, how is my time best spent in this endeavor? And it may be government contracting or it may not. So we'll go over a readiness checklist that can kind of help you determine if you are ready to do government contracting. Yeah, we'll go over that in a second. Research your government contracting overviews. So understanding the general lay of the land is really important. You're doing that today by joining ours. We've got other webinars on our website. I'll also go over real quick. We're going to go over Gavology, which is a resource that you can take advantage of if you are a client of ours. And I just want to say, beware of YouTube. You know, I don't see a lot of outright misinformation and lies on YouTube, but I see a lot of selling. So people trying to sell something. We don't get any commission. I'm not paid extra if you win a contract. So our purpose is to give it to you pretty straight here. So on the note of Gavology, this is just a little screenshot. Once you become a client of ours, we will share a code with you. It gives you access to this database of on-demand webinars as well as live webinars and resources. And the idea is just that you can be a student and go in and take these courses. It's got a nice little quiz at the end, and they're really helpful. And you can search for different topics. I really recommend taking advantage of this if you're a client of us, and look for overviews or in-depth deep dives. Really anything that's on there is going to be great. They're a good partner of ours, so I recommend taking advantage of the Gavology courses. And then research your resources, rather. We are not the only organization that does this kind of support. There's also the small business development centers. There's the Veteran Business Outreach Centers, Women Business Centers. California Department of General Services is actually a government agency that does support for folks that want to be vendors. And Caltrans does various programs to support folks. That's the Department of Transportation, California. And so we're going to go over the website real quick, our own website, which can help you with a lot of these items here. So let me just go ahead and switch over. NorcalPTAC.org. I know we're Norcal APEX Accelerator, but this is our web domain for now. So go there and you'll see that there's some nice looking stuff. But these tabs in the top are really what we want to focus our energies on at first. So the readiness checklist is the first one we want to go over. You go click on services, and you click on readiness checklist. Okay, so number one, are you an established business? And I alluded to this earlier, but you want your business license, you want a bank account, you want sufficient financial resources and cash flow to handle contracts. So, excuse me. Number two, do you have a business plan that includes government contracting? As I mentioned, that's one of the criteria you want to get set up. Can you afford to sell to the government? It can take 45 days or longer. We've seen longer, especially if there's issues with invoicing or you don't fill something out correctly. And you need to cover all your overhead before payment arrives. And you often will not get paid for a contract until you complete it. If it's an ongoing thing, there may be a monthly or quarterly payment schedule. But just keep in mind that government's not going to pay you up front, and typically they're not going to give you any sort of a loan or financial assistance to get this. So you will need some capital in order to get involved with the government contracting market. Number four, does your company have a history of sales? And this is something I like to say to folks is the government can afford to be picky. Well, there's only one federal government, but there's 100,000 businesses. I'm not saying 100,000 businesses are bidding on every bid, but there's a lot of competition out there for most government contracts, for almost any government contract. And if you had the choice of going with a business that's been established for 10 years and has done hundreds or thousands of sales in the last several years, would you rather do that? Oh, what happened here? Would you rather go with them, or would rather go with a brand new business with no history before? So the history of sales isn't just about building up your capital, it's also about building your accolades and your trust and trying to build trust with the government. And we're talking about in the private sector here. We also want you to have government contracting experience, ideally, but that's a bit of a catch-22, right? We're also talking about breaking into government contracting for the first time. And so it's really pretty mandatory that you've done some work in the private sector and then it's going all right. Have you done the necessary market research to determine the government's demand for your product and service? We'll talk about that today. This is really important. Some things the government just doesn't really buy. And is your website good? Do you have e-commerce? Do you have a nice looking layout and everything? Is it up to date? We'll talk a little bit more about that later. I'm clicking something that's jumping it back and forth. So that's the readiness checklist. We have a lot of resources that can help you get ready. And so the next thing we talked about was research in researching government contracting overviews. So this webinar that we're recording right now will go on this page. If you click on trainings, it will go into past event recordings. But we also have upcoming trainings you can click on and find all kinds of opportunities that are yet to come. But in the past event recordings, this is really helpful. We have 5.5, 6 years of webinars that we have put on as an organization, and we put them all here. And I really like to use this filter. It hides itself, so you have to know it's there or click on it. And then you can click on these tags here, or you can type things in here, certifications, and it'll come up with different webinars that have been tagged or have that word in there. And so if you're a veteran and you want to know about certifications for veteran-owned businesses, you click there. This is an opportunity to remind everyone that you never want to stop being a student. You're always going to have more to learn in this field, and especially in the beginning, being able to have a good overview understanding the big picture is going to be really important. So when you're going through all these tasks, you can mentally organize them into some sort of framework that makes sense. That's the number one issue I see with clients, is that they get into the field and they're overwhelmed because it is a jungle and it's a lot. That's why I had the image of the hedge maze, because it can really feel like a maze in the beginning. All right. So this is a great resource. You don't need any sort of, you don't have to be a client to access these. Govology, you got to be a client, you got to get in. This is just public. This is, anyone can go here right now and take a look at these. So we're really happy to be able to offer all of those. And again, just beware of using YouTube. Research your resources. So as I mentioned, we're not the only ones that offer services to small businesses. First one that comes to mind is the SBDC. If you click on our partners, we have got a list of folks here. Small Business Development Center, they do general business advising. They're very helpful and they're all over the place. So you can click and learn more about them and apply there. California Women's Business Centers. Fun fact, it's actually not just for women. So anybody can apply for those. Similar to the SBDC, they are funded by the SBA and they have different locations throughout the state. VBOC, especially if you're a Veteran Business Outreach Center is a great resource for you. They are very laser focused on how to support veterans and how they might have success in the private as well as government marketplaces. So please take a look at them and their resources. Caltrans has a mentor protege program called Cal Mentor. It's a great option. And I mentioned it before, but it's not on, or they're actually one of our funders, but the California Department of General Services has an office of small business programs that the office of, it's a long acronym, I'm not going to go, but they offer services to help small businesses that want to become vendors. So take a look at that. There's a lot of options out there. If you need any help kind of navigating this, please talk to your procurement specialist, and we're happy to help direct you and refer you. There's also this services tab. I love this website. I know it seems like I'm likely to be pretty biased, but there's a lot here. We got a list of local contracting, information on how to do business with California, Caltrans, DBE, federal contracting and certifications, cybersecurity, fire response, information on how to put together a capabilities statement, which we'll go over later. There's all of our introductory webinars and how to sign up for future ones. And just all of this is really great information to keep you going. Especially in the beginning. So please take a look at that when you get some time. All right. I know it's a whirlwind tour, but we got a lot to get through. This is a really important point. I think this can get lost in the fray. We know that we need to research the market, right? That makes sense. You need to understand your competition and who buys what you sell. But you also need to research your own business. If you hop into a meeting with me, can you tell me, all your data on revenue in the last 3 years, how many sales you've had, who your main clients are, what the breakdown of is, what's your overhead, who are your current key clients, who are your prospects, list off your past contracts in the private, in the market, in the government marketplace, any partners or potential partners you have. This is all really important. The government loves data. If you can put things into hard data, that's going to be really helpful. And we're talking about marketing there, but also just understanding your own business situation so that you can leverage this information to make good decisions. And it will come in handy in the marketing section as well. Research your competition, as I mentioned. I'll go over GovSpend and I'll go over all these in a second, but these are websites that you use for market research. USA Spending, Cal eProcure, Federal Procurement Data System, FPDS, and then just using your search engine, DuckDuckGo or Google or Ask Jeeves or whatever you use, and kind of Googling around and finding who's your competition out there. So we'll go over some of that in a second. And then also research the government market that you're targeting. And this may seem obvious, but it can be intimidating for folks that start out. I want to say focus your efforts in general, not just your research, but your marketing and your bidding on small, local, and subcontracting in the beginning for most folks. The jumping into the deep end with federal contracting large projects is going to be difficult for a lot of you. And so we want you to spend your time well here. Your task in researching the market is going to be determine the demand. Where is the demand for your product or service? And how is it purchased? So do they just ask for quotes? Is it kind of an informal thing, like just fill out this form and tell us what your pricing is for 100 of these? Or are they asking for a full proposal? They want a kind of a book report and to lay out a whole pricing proposal, and they want to know your overhead and your profit margins and all of that. Are these kind of things purchased through a contracting vehicle like California Multiple Award Schedule, the General Services Administration Schedule, a GSA schedule, or a blanket purchase agreement? These are good questions to ask, because if you don't understand how your product or service is acquired and which agencies are acquiring it, then you may be looking on these databases all day long, all week long, and never seeing an opportunity come up because you're missing that it's being acquired in a way that's hidden to you from the public searches that you're doing. So we can, of course, help with that as well. And I want to go through, I'm not going to go back into my web browser, but we will go over some screenshots of some market research sites that may help you on your journey. First one is GovSpend. So this is just a screenshot here, as I mentioned. This is a restricted access database. It's something that we pay for. We have very limited accounts and exports. So it's something you access through us, and we can generate reports for us. But this is just a little sneak peek of kind of what it looks like. We put in keywords. You got a lot of filters here, and we can generate information on government contracts that have been awarded across the local, state, and federal levels. And really all kinds of different kinds of awards, they call them. So ask your counselor about this one. We can help you out. It's a great tool. This one is available to anyone, and I've got the link here up top, usaspending.gov. This is the federal government's main market research website for purchases that they've made. So they offer this for everybody to go in, and it kind of similar to what I just mentioned with GovSpend. You can utilize all these filters on the left, most notably the keyword one. You can also put in NAICS codes, all kinds of things, specify which fiscal years and range, and you get in there and play with it. This is available for everybody, and it'll give information on recipient's name, start date, end date. I'm not going to show the whole thing right here, but this is a really great resource, and it's easy to use. Not as easy as the next one. This is the Federal Procurement Data System, FPDS, and it really does look like it was built in the mid-90s, and it probably has been. But there's a lot of benefits of using this one, even though it's harder to use. The filters are a lot harder to use. But there's one thing that I really like about this, that this is actually the portal that federal contracting officers will use, and purchasing assistants and folks, to input data on purchases they made. So it doesn't get more straight from the source than this. And if you zoom in here a little bit, this button that says view, you've got some contract information here. You've got the obligation, the office, and things like that. You zoom in this and click on view, you'll get this form here, and this is actually what they're filling out. And there's a lot of information here. You can get the cage code and all the information on the actual company that won it. You can get the NAICS codes, the North American Industry Classification System codes, on these contracts. If you see a contract and you think, oh, that's my kind of contract, go copy down these NAICS codes. That's a good market research task. And then write all these NAICS codes down. Because if the government is actually issuing a solicitation and they have the NAICS codes on there, then you know for sure it's a NAICS code they use. And if you see that it's been awarded to a company that's similar to yours, you know that it's a NAICS code that should probably be on your SAM registration as well. But what I want to highlight here is that they actually have some email addresses here that you can harvest for your market research and do some information trying to find who these people are and if they might be the right people to talk to. This is just one random example. They all have some sort of prepared user or approved by user. And I wouldn't just go ahead and start spamming these folks. That's not probably best practice, but using it as a launching off point to see if you can do some research and find these people online and see if they're the right contacts helps to have somewhere to start with. So that's federal. Gov spend is general. It's local, federal, and state. USA Spending and FPDS are federal market research websites. This is for the California state. caleprocure.ca.gov. It's kind of, if you're familiar with sam.gov, it's like sam.gov for California. And by and large, it's a really nifty website. It's a really helpful resource is the find past purchases, but you can also see you can find bid opportunities, which is the open ones. You can find certified firms, that's your competition there, or potential teaming partners, subcontractors, prime contractors. But this resource here is really helpful for doing market research. The trouble with it is that it is very old and very slow. And I would say about 1 in 4 times I log in, I can't get it to work. So that was the case when I put this presentation together. But I just want to give you a little snapshot here of what the basic filter screen looks like. It's called Fiscal Skippers, the State Contract Procurement Registration System. Skippers for fun. And you put in the description something like janitorial, and you can narrow it down, acquisition type, and then always put a date here, because this will start working once you hit search, and it could take 10 to 15 minutes to come up with a search, or never, as in the case when I put this together. So this is a great resource for finding what the state has issued in terms of awards. So use this to do market research on what they buy, how they buy it, who your competition is, when things might be recompeted, contract vehicles like CMAS and things like that. Okay, so that was research. Step number 2, the second phase, is to get organized and set up. And I think this is, people do not forget about this stage. You have to get registered. And a lot of folks want to get certified. And I think certifications are going to be their ticket to having success. Is to get registered. But we don't want to just think about sam.gov. Sam.gov is a registration. So a registration doesn't have any special criteria. You have to have a business, but it's not a way of singling some businesses out to give them any sort of incentive. It's just putting your information in, filling out some bubbles and consenting to certain legalese, and then you are in the vendor database. Not just sam.gov. Cities, all cities have registration portals, or most counties have registration portals. They may contract with a third-party company like BidSync, Periscope, Planet Bids, that will host bids and vendor databases for them. All states will have vendor databases and places where you need to get registered. And so I just showed you Cal eProcure. That is not just where you do market research and find bids. That is also where you can get registered as a bidder in California. And they'll go through certain questions you have to answer there. So again, registrations and certifications, we have some folks that get a little bit confused about what's a registration and what's a certification. A registration is just announcing that you are there. I am here and I want to do business. A certification is a bit different. A certification for a government contracting certification, there may be certifications industry type saying I can fall trees, or I can move things, or I have security clearance. That's not what we're talking about here. We're not talking about industry specific certifications. We're talking about government contracting certifications. So these are some special criteria. So if you're a woman and you have ownership of your company and control, if you're a minority, if you're a veteran or a disabled veteran, if you live in something called a hub zone, these can grant you certifications, which the government then uses to set aside certain contracts or to establish certain goals that they want to apply a little extra pressure on the awarding agencies to say, hey, we haven't had a lot of women businesses, relatively speaking, competing in these marketplaces. So we want to set aside certain contracts saying, just let WOSB, women-owned small business firms, compete on these. So certifications are something you need, a set of criteria, characteristics, where your business is or the demographics of the business owner in order to compete with. So here's some example of certifications. State of California has the small business, or you'll sometimes see it small business enterprise certification. And this is something you have to do in addition to your Cal eProcure general registration. Once you got your registration set up, you go in and submit your information for small business. Small business for the public works, it's the same certification. It just has, if you're in public works, if you use a code that establishes you as somebody that does construction, then the threshold is higher for what counts as small. So it's approximately double. So, you can have 200 employees rather than just 100. And so for those of you who are mom and pop shops, so a one-person business, some businesses can count as being small while being pretty darn large. So just keep that in mind. But the public works thing is just because if you're in construction, oftentimes you do need to be pretty big in order to compete on public works contracts. So their standard for what's small is a little bit larger. But really, that's essentially the same certification. And then the DVBE is the Disabled Veteran Business Enterprise certification there. And as you might guess, is if you have a service disability and you are a veteran, the United States Armed Forces, and you live in California, then you can qualify for that if you have ownership and control of your company. So those are really the only certifications for the state of California. There's no WO, there's no women-owned, there's no minority ones for California. There are legal reasons for that. The state legislator had made it illegal a long time ago, and it came up for vote. We voted it down recently. But United States federal government, specifically through the SBA, the Small Business Administration, they have a lot of different certifications that do take these things into account. So for instance, they've got the SB certification. They also have the SDB, the Small Disadvantaged Business Certification. And this is primarily for minority-owned businesses. So just keep that in mind. This is something that you get during your SAM registration. So it's kind of a 2-for-1 while you're getting your SAM registration. The government will basically tell you if you're small or not based on your revenue count and your employee count in your NAICS code that you submit. But you have to check a box that says disadvantaged business or not. And then the WOSB is or the Economically Disadvantaged WOSB, Woman-Owned Small Business Program. It's kind of just what it sounds like. If you are a woman and you own your business and you exert control, you have the highest office, some different criteria, then you might be eligible for this, and you can compete for set-asides and be qualified towards government's goal for doing contracting with WOSB businesses. Same basic thing with veteran-owned small businesses, or the SD here stands for Service Disabled Veteran-Owned Small Business. The Historically Underutilized Business Zone. These are all mouthfuls, aren't they? The Hub Zone. This is the one that doesn't have anything to do with the demographics of the company ownership, but rather the location of your primary office and a plurality of your employees. They have to live, and I think at least 35% of your employees need to live in a hub zone as well. Hub zones are just regions that the government decides based on census data, really haven't received a big slice of the pie for contracting. So sometimes they're inner city areas, and sometimes, quite often, they are rural areas. So most of Northern California above the Bay Area is a hub zone. So you might be eligible for that as well. 8A Business Development Program. This one's a little bit different. It's not just a certification. It's a 9-year program with multiple steps and all these kind of commitments. This is a minority development program, a minority business owner program. So you might be able to look into that. You need at least 2 years of experience and preferably more, and have some government contracting experience. So I do not often recommend that to clients that are trying to start out in government contracting. And the DBE is a bit of a different one. It's a state federal hybrid certification. It's determined by the federal government, that the Department of Transportation, that every state needs to have their own program. And again, it's a minority and women-owned business certification that can help you do business on specifically Caltrans projects, but also BART, any sort of transportation agency that gets federal dollars. So that can kind of be a big help if you qualify for those. And it's quite an application process. So. Okay, so that was just a quick deep dive on the kind of certifications that you might see and that you might want to ask your counselor about. And as I mentioned before, contract vehicles. In your research phase, and you're going through these market research sites, you may have seen things come up that say, BPA or IDIQ or CMAS or GSA. You see those things, and you see that your business industry type it has a lot of those popping up. Look into it more. You might have a product that is frequently purchased through a kind of platform that they call a vehicle, or a blanket purchase agreement that you won't see unless you know ahead of time and you sign up and you have to apply for these. And so you have to be chosen to get on these kind of contract vehicles. So if you don't know that, you might be spinning your wheels trying to find things on sam.gov or Cali Procure, and they're never posted publicly, or very few of them are. So definitely something to consider. How is your product purchased? It's not always open market competition, that's for sure. And update your DSBS profile. That's the Dynamic Small Business Search. This is a free federal profile. It automatically sets up kind of a stub profile, I call it, when you do your SAM registration. But it's up to you to kind of figure out the arcane art of getting in the back end and putting in your more information on your business, keywords, special equipment, a capabilities narrative. So this is really helpful for letting the government know that you're there. Contracting officers will use this platform to find small businesses, to do market research, to see if they can set things aside. But the nice thing about this that I've had a lot of clients have success with is that you can also capture what are called micro purchases here. So micro purchases for the federal government or anything under $10,000. They don't even need to talk to multiple businesses. They determine it's not really worth their time to put in a bunch of effort doing a bunch of market research if they have a small need. We just need to fix a leak or something like that, or we just need a new computer office chair. They may just go find you on the DSBS and go ahead and reach out to you via email or phone call and ask, hey, send us a quote. Can you do this? And those are not opportunities that it's easy to go after and be proactive with because they're not posted publicly. But a lot of business is done with that. And in fact, anything under 25 grand for the federal government, they do not need to post publicly. So this is a good opportunity. The DSBS is used. It is a helpful thing. This is kind of what it looks like. Here's the link there, dsbs.sba.gov. It is managed by the Small Business Administration. And you'll see a lot of filters here. One of them is keywords. So imagine you're a contracting officer and you want to find construction firms in a certain area. Well, you can go through these, and one of the things you might put in is the keywords, or you might use a NAICS code for the kind of solicitation you're looking to send out. And I blurred these out here, even though it's public. I just don't want to single out any firms here. But here's kind of what it looks like. You'll have some numbers, you'll have the business names, some names, addresses, and then this section here is where your capabilities narrative goes. So this is something that goes right out in the front. Now, if you are someone in the government or a prime contractor looking for a sub, and you want to find a business that has their stuff together and is ready to go and serious about contracting, are you going to want to click on the one that's got this nice 3 lines about their business, or the one that hasn't figured out or hasn't put the time into filling it in here? So this is good. This looks nice. You got some more information, not just name and address. And this, I'm less inclined to click on that. And my understanding is that that is true in general, folks. And I want to talk about a contracting data sheet that I've just put together based on a previous version, but really updated it to be really helpful for doing more than just tracking your own business information and websites, but also as like a living document for tracking business opportunities, contracting opportunities, teaming partners, things like that. So let me just switch over here. And I just want to note this document will be provided to everyone after the session. And within a week, I think we'll get a link to a Google Drive link to it. Okay, so getting organized, staying organized is really important. And the reason for that is because you will be spinning your wheels trying to navigate through all of these complicated contracting procedures. If you're losing things like website logins, your NAICS code, UEIs, your bank account information, things like that. If I had more clients that were following some sort of template like this, keeping all their information in one place, I think things could go a lot smoother for you. And I am not lying to you when I say I really want to maximize your success and reduce the amount of time you have to spend on things. So this is a little bit of initial setup, filling in this template, but it is something that will pay off, I believe. And so you got some information on who your advisor is. So my name could go there if you were assigned to me. Just put that information, pretty self-explanatory. Your legal business name, this might be something that's different on your Secretary of State listing, might be different on your IRS paperwork, might be different on your business license. So good to keep in mind if these are all the same thing. It's going to get technical when you get into registrations. DBA, fictitious business name statements, physical address. And if you were talking about sam.gov, I mean, you really want to use the same address for everything across contracting, whether it's county, state, federal. So if you need a physical address that's unique to your company, not a shared space, not a co-working space, not a registered agent address, virtual address, PO box. And a lot of folks end up having to use their home offices, which is might maybe a bit lamentable, but it needs to be a physical address that's unique to your company and not any of these other things. Mailing address and blah, 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 blah. TIN, your tax identification number, or your EIN. This is assigned by the IRS. You can fill these things in. The UEI is something you get during your SAM registration after the initial phase of validation. And then once your SAM is approved, knock on wood, you get the CAGE code, the commercial and governmental entity code. And so having these here on hand will be really helpful. DUNS number is not so much used, especially not by the federal government anymore. It's been replaced by the UEI, but it can be useful for certain county and city applications still. NAICS codes, I've mentioned these before. I'm not going to give a full introduction, but it's an industry code that describes what you do. It's 6-digit codes, so enter the code here and the full description. Don't forget the descriptions because those are really helpful, and put those here. You don't need a ton of them. You really just need one if that's the only one that's relevant, but I've put a couple place markers here. Feel free to adapt this once you get this, add rows, add columns, whatever you want. This is inspiration for you. California uses a different code system. It's called the UNSPSC code. It is a mouthful. It's an 8-digit code, and you can enter those here. Keywords that describe your business and capabilities narrative. I think it's really handy to have something here that just 3 to 5 sentences describing your business. You can plug that into your website. You can plug it into your DSBS profile. You can use it on your capabilities statement. We've got some more detailed information here that's going to help you track what did I report on sam.gov? Oh, is that something different? Oh, I put the incorporation date on sam.gov, but I put the LLC articles of organization date 2 years earlier on Cal eProcure, and now I'm getting confused. So helpful to stay to get all of this kind of on the same page. This is mostly for sam.gov. You got different places to put your points of contact. Business bank account info, believe it or not, they use your account number that you enter into sam.gov for verification purposes, especially for SBA Connect. So keeping that in mind, using those. This will be really helpful for a lot of folks. We've got some websites here, login.gov, eAuthenticate, Cal eProcure, Dun & Bradstreet, Govology. We want you to add local agency websites that you come across that you have to make registrations for. Any other websites you come across, we've got some of these market research websites that I went over earlier. We've put them there for you. So don't lose your user IDs and your password. If you get a password manager, that's great. But having it all in one place is very helpful. And I clicked on a link here. Certifications, it's really easy to get these confused. So just keep in mind that you can put them all in one place. All of these SBA certifications, SAM.gov certifications, state ones, and enter whether you've submitted, whether it's been approved, and a lot of them have certification numbers you can affix to them as well. And this is something that's a little bit different. If I were in your position, I would make this a living document and update it as I go. So I want this idea to be that when you're reaching out to different government contracting representatives, purchasing assistants, contracting officers, program heads, that you will track their information here. When did you call them? What's their email address, phone number, things like that. Add notes and go along so that you can stay organized on your marketing efforts. And same thing for teaming partners, teaming contacts, potential teaming partners, folks that might be prime contractors that you can do subcontracting work for, or folks that might be subcontractors for you, that you can be the prime and you're looking for subs, or folks that you could team up with on an equal footing and try to go after contracts, or just other folks that might be helpful as mentors and things like that. And this is really important, tracking all your bid opportunities and not just trying to letting it to go to the ether. Writing everything down that you're interested in. You know, you found this on the bid match, you found this on sam.gov, on a county listing, on a builder's exchange website. You're interested in it, track the information here. When's it due? Don't miss the questions due date. So a lot of times you want to submit questions. A lot of them have mandatory pre-bid meetings. Don't miss those. But also, even if it's not mandatory, always go to the pre-bid meetings. Sometimes they're online, sometimes they're in person, depending on your industry. But don't miss those. And of course, don't miss the final deadline. In every case, they are very strict about if it's at 5 p.m., you better have it in at 5 p.m. So this is a good way to track these things as well. So I think you get the idea. This is a resource we're going to send to everybody later. And I do recommend you'll use it to help stay organized. So hopefully that is helpful for folks. And with that, we are on to the next stage. This is the third phase. Marketing your business. So you're going to use a lot of the research that you did in order to really do a bang up job in your marketing. And that's the first thing that's going to go into is your capability statement. So once you're registered and things, maybe you have a certification or two and you understand the contract vehicles you need, and you understand your own business, right? You've done that research on your past performance and all of that, then you could put together a capability statement. And this is what I say is it's kind of like a resume for your business. It's a contracting marketing tool, and it is expected in a lot of different industries and fields in government contracting. Nobody will be surprised if you hand them a capability statement at a conference or expo. So do put in some time for this. We have done you the favor of putting together a template that we recommend that you use if you are feeling lost about how to put together capability statements. There are other statement templates you can find online. This one we've designed with the intention of being useful for about 95% of our clients and most folks that are starting out, or you can use it as inspiration and go from there. It's kind of what it looks like. We also have an instruction guide. There's also a webinar on the website as well that you can take a look at. So we're not going to dive into capability statements in a lot of detail today because this is not the capability statement webinar, but it's kind of what it looks like. You've got some introductory statements, you've got bulletized lists of your core competencies, got a lot of this information that might be on your contracting data sheet if you're using that. Make it look nice with some images and things like that. So again, check out those resources if you have more questions about that. This is a nice little kind of secret move that a lot of folks don't think of when they're getting into contracting. But your website, it's 2023, right? Almost 2024. You can spend a few bucks on a website and keep it updated and make it look nice. I know that can be hard for a lot of really, really small folks who work out in the field, but a little bit goes a long way with this. And if you can afford the time and energy, revamp your website with a government contracting page. I'll quickly go through some examples of what this looks like. A contracting ready website, like I said, it's updated and relevant. In the government tab is something that's really nice. If you're in the government, or if you're a prime contractor or sub, and you want to learn more about the business, so you're going to go to the website, right? You might take a look at the capability statement, but really the website's the document that people are often really interested in. And if you see a government contracting tab right there, well, that tells you that this business is pretty serious about it. You can enter a capability statement PDF for downloading, so they can find a general version of your cap statements. Any information, your registration certifications, NAICS codes, UNSPSC codes, the kind of things that would also be on a capability statement, but it's real easy to access on your website for folks that get there. Maybe you have some recent projects and performance history, and everything looks nice and it's easy to navigate. We got a couple examples here. We are not endorsing these companies. It's just an example of websites that look nice and have a government contracting tab here. When you click on it, you get a company overview. You've got some current and previous projects, contracts that they're doing. If you scroll down, you get a capability statement link. So that looks great. If I was in the government and I was considering doing business with this organization, I would feel reassured. Similar thing with McKinsey. They don't have a separate tab, but if you scroll down on their homepage, you'll see some logos of clients that they've worked with before. They also mentioned that they have a GSA contract. They put their contract number there, and then they list all their NAICS codes with the descriptions. Because remember, it's not computers reading these things that just have all the codes memorized. I mean, they may have some codes memorized, but having the descriptions there helps ground it so they actually understand what it is you're doing. So these are just a couple examples that we think might be helpful to use as inspiration. Thanks, Thomas Burns, for putting those together. And so once you've done that, you want to use the market research that you've been doing in order to make a list of target agencies and contacts at those agencies. So hopefully the contracting data sheet template that I put together will be helpful for that as well. Tracking the folks that you're getting in contact with. You don't want to spread too wide of a net because then you're not really focusing your energies. But then again, you don't want to just choose one person at one agency that's maybe not giving you a call back. I can't stress this enough. Attend events. There's online events, networking events, there's in-person conferences, expos, industry days, government matchmakers, mixers, chamber of commerce things. Go to those. They might be painful. That's up to you to decide, but they are definitely going to be helpful if you play your cards right. You can find teaming partners. You can do research in your competition. You can meet potential buyers in the federal, state, local contracting marketplace, all in one event. Sometimes for some of these things. So definitely do not discount those when you're going about your contracting business, and don't just stay on your computer alone trying to do these sort of things. Marketing is all about getting out there. And you do want to build relationships with key individuals. Hear a lot of folks complain, oh, well, government contracting, it's all about who you know. Well, that's not entirely true, but of course, who you know is important, and that is not a fixed quantity. How many people you know can change, and you can get to know more people. You can reach out to them on LinkedIn. You can establish relationships with them by meeting them at conferences and things like that. And if you're going through bid proposals and you see someone that you've worked with before, there is an added element of trust there. And then also being able to get some information on upcoming opportunities and things like that, and best practices. It is really helpful for your success in this marketplace, is building relationships. We'll go into that in a minute. And just in general, you want to convey your value. That is what all of this is about, is conveying value when you're marketing yourself. But don't forget, you're always going to be a student. Never stop learning. So you're going to do two things at once. You're going to walk and chew bubblegum. You're going to convey your value while also getting more information on where to find opportunities for your business and what's the best way to go about it. So that's always the dual purpose of marketing, and is doing market research at the same time. It's kind of the yin and the yang of this whole process here. Couple notes, some little tips about marketing your business and making introductions. Don't be shy. I get a lot of folks that come to me with questions that are very specific to, a specific contract. I say, oh, go ahead and reach out to the whoever's in charge of the solicitation and ask them. Sometimes they are not legally allowed to answer questions on a one-on-one basis for an open solicitation. They have to collect them and post them publicly. But oftentimes they are, depends on the period in the contract, whether if it hasn't been published yet, there's less restrictions and things like that. But don't be shy, do your research. You're going to be prepared at this point, right? You're not going to be asking questions that you could have had answered just by looking at the solicitation. That's something. I'm not going to say there's no stupid questions, because there may be some stupid questions, but you're not going to be asking stupid questions. You're going to be asking good questions that are legitimate, and don't be afraid to ask questions if something's not clear. If you've done your homework, you've highlighted the solicitation, or you're just curious about upcoming opportunities or how a small business in your situation might get involved, go ahead and reach out to the government. And there's a lot of folks, small business specialists and advocates in the government that are there to correspond with you and to help you navigate this. So we're not the only Sherpas here. There are certainly other folks in the government that's good to establish contact with. Know your value and how to convey it. So this will go, all the research that you've done will go into here. Practice your elevator speech. So that's the 30-second or 60-second speech on what your business is and how you can help them. That's really what you want to be thinking from their perspective, how to help the government contracting folks. And think about what that means to be in the government. They're not usually the end user of the, unless they're soliciting janitorial services for the office that they happen to work in. Unlikely. Usually they've been told that they have to go ahead and secure some goods or services and get it for a certain price and get it by a certain date. And they need to get that done. So they want to find out, how can this business help me reach my goals, help me reach my quotas, and lock this thing down? And so that's kind of what you want to stress in all your marketing materials, but in your elevator speech as well. Think from their perspective, how do I solve their problem? Use your marketing materials. So use your website, your capability statement, anything else, business cards, things like that. Be persistent. Don't be afraid to follow up. A lot of folks will not respond at first. And maybe change your tact. If you're the receptionist is not really being helpful, try to find contact information for someone else. Find them on LinkedIn. Go higher up. Be creative about this. This is a jungle out there. And it is going to be helpful if you are not going to give up as soon as you hit the first roadblock. So do be persistent. Feel free to follow up with folks if they don't respond. A lot of people are busy and maybe they don't need your service, but you don't know that until you actually get in contact with somebody. But of course, keep in mind, don't be annoying. Don't be rude. Be kind. Be understanding of them. They are busy and they've got a lot on their plate. And you will find some people that are rude, but that's just life, isn't it? So just do your best at kind of balancing these different priorities. Don't disregard the phone. Making phone calls is perfectly great, even this day and age. A lot of what you'll be doing is email and in person now that the worst of COVID is in the past. That you'll want to use all these different methods for marketing, even LinkedIn there. So always be learning while you market. I've mentioned that before, but don't forget that you will never stop being a student. Excuse me. Okay, now bidding, that's where the money is, right? So you have gone through this whole process and all these different steps. And then the last stage is to bid. You want to use your preparation that you've done to find leads for the best opportunities. And you understand that that may not mean just going on sam.gov or going on Cal eProcure. I will show you some of the resources here where you can find open events online, events or opportunities, rewards, or purchases. We have a list on our website of local agency websites that our service area contains. So that may be helpful for some of you, the folks in Houston and folks. You will not find that very helpful because it's just 15 counties. But counties, cities, we have transportation districts. Don't forget school districts, hospitals, things like that. Those are all governments. So take a look at that as well. Prime contractor websites, a lot of times if you want to, especially in things like anything public works related, construction related, a lot of times a prime contractor will be a large business and they will have a vendor form on their website. So you can sign up as a potential subcontractor to get on the radar and then they'll call you if they need anything. It's also a good place to do research. Cal eProcure, as I mentioned, you can find opportunities there. SAM, we've been over that. Something I haven't mentioned before is acquisition.gov. This houses the whole federal acquisition regulation, which is where you can learn about all of the regulations and clauses that govern contracting for the federal government, but it's also where they publish procurement forecasts. So a lot of agencies will put, if they know they're going to need something in the third quarter, they'll put it on there and some basic, pretty bare bones information on what they're hoping to acquire during that time. And you can kind of use that prepare yourself. And keep in mind, this is for federal contracting. So, you want to be on more of the advanced side of things when you're going after those kind of acquisitions. Associations like Builders Exchange will often host opportunities. Don't forget about those. Different industry organizations, chambers of commerce, and things like that. And then we have a bid match service that we can offer to you. I mentioned at the beginning, I know it's been a while, but talk to your advisor if you are a client of ours, and we can help you get that set up and find some opportunities. I want to stress this. I've mentioned it before, but when you're bidding, just like when you're researching and marketing, you want to focus on small first. So think small. Think what's the lower threshold for entry. That's a term I like to use, a threshold for entry. If there's a big threshold for entry, that means that you got to be real big to get over that hump there. And that's the case for long-term contracts with the federal government, things that are, scalable, very high quantity, high dollar threshold. They require a lot more out of you to get involved. So in the beginning, be thinking about subcontracting, how to get government experience without having the prime contractor's responsibility. A little easier to get involved in that way, in a lot of ways. And think about local opportunities. So your cities, your counties, all of those ones I mentioned. Not to say there isn't opportunity to start small in the federal. Specifically, one thing that comes to mind is the Viper, the program with the Forest Service, helping use equipment that's otherwise just sitting around in order to do work, supporting wildfire crews. So that's something you can get small opportunities. And like I said, micro purchases. A lot of times contracting officers can just award something if it's under $10,000 without much of a process at all. So keep in mind that small can take multiple forms, but really you want to focus on local and subcontracting as much as possible when you're starting out to build that past performance so you can graduate to the deeper end of the pool there. If that's what you're looking for. A lot of folks just stay with local and they make a killing. So there's no one right way about it there. And when it is time to put together a bid, you want to go after something. This is really what you want to kick into gear and really have a good relationship with your advisor. Work with them to put together the best bid possible. I love going over this stuff. I love the back and forth of drafting bid proposals and things like that. So please give us enough time to go over them and plenty of notice ahead of time. And we'll give you some feedback and help you stay compliant with these things. And don't be surprised, even if you've gone through all these steps and you fail. You submit something and it's not chosen. Maybe you are edged out, but pricing is really important in the contracting market. A lot of times you'll get businesses that are still small, but they have, 10 million in revenue and last year, and they've got 100 employees. And they can afford to produce at a high quantity. And you might get edged out in that way, or maybe you made some little mistake that nobody caught in your application. You're going to have to learn. You're going to have to learn from your mistakes and keep going. And we see success for folks that are persistent, that understand that it is a long game. That's where we see most of our success with our clients. So keep trying until you win. If you've done all your business fundamentals and you've gone through these steps, I think you will eventually have success. And the odds are in your favor here. So in summary, just to review, number one, research your company, research the competition, research potential teaming partners, research the market, what agencies are buying, what you sell, how do they buy what you sell. Number two, get organized and set up. So this is the really boring phase. This is where you go through your registrations, your certifications that can take months and months to be to put together and be approved. You're going to set up your profiles, DSBS profiles, Cali Procure profiles, sign up for any contract vehicles that your research has determined that you might need, and use this data sheet that I put together. Number three, market your business. So use your capability statement, use your website, go to networking events, emails, calls, LinkedIn, social media, etc. Find any way you can to market your business and convey your value, keeping in mind the perspective of the folks that you're talking to. And the last one, bid. So use online portals, bid match systems, knowledge from your leads and work with your advisor to prepare these submissions. And that is it for today. Oh, one thing I want to mention, just this little image. It started out as a hedge maze, a confusing cacophony of greenery, and now it's a nice, pretty path with flowers and daffodils. So hopefully this has done some to kind of straighten out the path and make it a little clearer, all the steps that might be hidden that goes into government contracting. So we want to see you succeed. And this is our team here. If you're in a service area and you have an established business and you're looking for government contracting and you've done this research, go ahead and sign up, and we're looking forward to working with you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, James. That was a very in-depth, very info-heavy presentation, but all of it is so important. And just as a verbal reminder, you'll be getting the recording as well as the slides later on this week. So you'll be able to review and kind of go a little bit more into depth. Maybe some things were a bit confusing. But that's where our Q&A will also come in, which we'll get to right after I let you guys know about some other events we have going on. We have a really exciting Doing Business with BART event this Thursday. So we're going to have a representative from BART come and give you the insider tips and tricks and the programs that can help you be successful with your next BART bid. As well as next Thursday, we'll be doing the prequel to this event, the How to Do Business with the Government, and that'll be next Thursday at 10 a.m. And then as a little preview into our next year's events, we do have a How to Do Business with the State of California event scheduled in January on the 18th. We'll be joined by a representative from the California DGS Office of Small Business and Disabled Veteran Business Services. I think I got that. So they're an absolutely fantastic office and resource for businesses just like yours. So a cannot miss event. But if these aren't quite enough to get you through to the new year, do remember, if you sign up for APEX Accelerator services, you can get access to Govology, on-demand webinars and resources that you can watch on your time when you are ready for it. So there's a lot of trainings that you can get connected with, and it's just a matter of which ones you want to chase after. So with that, we can go into the Q&A. And James, did you want to handle this?
Sure, yeah, I'll go
Okay.
over these, and I'm going to answer them from the question and answer tab. So if you have them, go ahead and put them in there. And I like to do sort of rapid fire here. So JS Shree is asking if business has made a loss, will it affect a winning bid? I am not sure I understand your question there. If you want to re-ask that, that would be helpful. Yeah, thanks. Jayashri is asking again, we already have certification SAM registrations. How long will it take to win the first contract? So this is a good question, kind of question we get all the time, but it's not possible to answer. Everybody's journey is going to be different. Your location, your business history, your propensity for doing these kind of documentations, all of that, how if you can stay compliant, the demand for your industry, all of these things are going to affect whether you win a contract or not, and your competition, all that. So there's no easy answer for that, but I would say don't expect anything in the first several months. You want to be thinking more long term. We often see it takes about a year and a half for folks to win their first contract. Carlos is asking, what advice do you have for small businesses when the contracting officer is months past due on choosing an awardee? I would recommend trying to follow up with different folks in the agency. Don't have a cookie cutter answer for this. Really depends on what kind of communications we've had with them before. Oftentimes they will get pretty far into the process and something in the agency changes, or funding is cut or reallocated, and they have to change something. So that is unfortunately life. They are very entitled to just go ahead and cancel a bid, even if you've put in work to do it. So it doesn't feel fair, but that's kind of how it is. So I would just try to get in touch with somebody in the department to see what's the status there, and always remain polite and understanding in your interactions with them. What's the difference when submitting a GSA FSS solicitation via email? This is a very specific question. Thanks for answering, but we don't have time to go into details like that. Talk to your counselor if you haven't yet. Britt's asking, I'm starting to understand the layout of a contract other than when they need parts. Is there a catalog that I have to use to find the right part? Britt, I'm not sure what you are referring to in terms of parts. So sorry, folks, I can't answer some of these questions unless you're a little more, don't be so specific that it's only your business, but also give me some more context on what you're talking about here. Does your organization or which departments offer assistance to apply for the SBIR? We can offer some SBIR assistance, but we will likely refer you over to a group called the TFG, the Tech Futures Group, which is a special program of the Small Business Development Center, who are our close partners and sister programs. So they are really the SBIR experts, but we can offer support as well. Thanks, Ivan. Where do we go to Freedom of Information Act award contracts for NASA and DoD? So you're trying to find more information on contracts for NASA and DoD. Oftentimes they will have information on how to submit a FOIA on their website. That would be something that you can also look up. There are some standardized procedures there. It's going to be different in each case on exactly what you should do on if you should. And you might also want to consider whether to have a friend or another business submit FOIAs. Sometimes, it can make their lives a little bit harder if you're asking for all this information, especially if it's around bid due time, and they might remember. It makes it a little harder. So I would talk to your Apex counselor, if you have one, about how to put together FOIAs. How do we find events to attend in Southern California? Well, there are a number of Apex centers in Southern California. Take a look at them, and if they have any events on their webpage, I would use your search engine and try to find things. There's things like Navy Gold Coast. There's different events that happen on an annual basis. But a lot of this, a lot of your research that you're doing, Kenya, is going to be about being creative with how you find information. There is no one database for all government contracting events. It may come from a variety of places. When we find something in our service area, we put it on our website. I know a lot of programs are similar, but we won't catch everything. So one thing I might do is set up a Google Alerts. Google has a system where you can be notified if certain terms are coming up in the news. So if you hear an announcement for a website, it'll email you about it, give you a little alert. So that's one option, but just kind of weekly set aside some time to do government contracting upkeep and use Google or whatever your search engine is to find, opportunities, events that might be happening. You can look for different things like that. Thanks, great question, Kenya. Jayashri is asking, we're a California-based company. Can we win contracts in other states? Great question. Yes, absolutely you can. It may be easier for folks in their own state to win contracts from those states because there may be certifications that you have to be domiciled in California in order to have. Or I guess I'm thinking, if you want to compete in Arizona, Arizona-based companies may have certifications that help them go after contracts. So sometimes those can be pretty significant or sometimes not. Something to look into, but in general, yes, you can do business across state lines and government contracting with other state governments, and that is not a problem. And we can help you. We're experts in California contracting, but we will certainly do research if you are looking to do business with another state on how to get that going. A lot of the certification programs and protocols are similar across different states, despite there being 50 of them. A lot of them are similar in that way. So a lot of them have the SB certification, for instance. And Jayashri has one more question here. Do we have resources on how to find competitors in a bid. For example, how many people might be bidding for a project? The short answer is kind of not. What I recommend doing, well, so for Cal eProcure, for the California website, vendor website, when they post an opportunity, and you get on and you click on the opportunity, and it's going to come up, or the event as they call it, and you'll see on the right there's a view event package, and there's view vendor ads. That's somewhere where folks sometimes, if they're looking for subcontracting opportunity, if they're looking for, they're looking for a prime, if they're a subcontractor looking for a prime, they may post there. That's where you might be able to find folks. Similarly, for the federal government, there's something called subnet. You can post if if you're a sub looking for prime. You can get some information on competitors or potential teaming partners that way. There's also, if there's a pre-bid meeting, if it's online or in person, sometimes you can write down who else is there. If it's in a format that allows you to do that, make introductions and figure that out. If it's in person, and you get some information on who's probably intending on submitting a bid, if they're at one of those meetings, that would make a lot of sense. And lastly, it's a pretty good indicator that somebody's interested in submitting a bid if they've done it before, or especially if they are the current or past contract holder. So that's where your past purchase market research may come in handy. So it's no one place, and I will say that those the subnet and the California vendor ads, not super frequently used, to be honest. You can post something there, you can take a look there, just temper your expectations. A lot of times you will just have to use your market research and your general understanding of the industry to see who's around, who might be competing. And again, giving you all these tools, contracting specific tools, but one of the most powerful tools is just your web browser, your search engine. So really trying to find who's in your industry and who's around is going to be really important, and then making introductions and talking to folks. So hopefully that's helpful. That looks like the last question we have here. So yeah, I hope that this event was helpful for everybody in terms of getting an overview of the steps in a little more detail than we do in our introduction webinars. We took a full hour and a half to get through this, but thank you everyone so much for your great questions.
Absolutely.
And hand the thing over to Amanda.
Perfect. And thank you all so much for joining us this morning. It is a bit of a longer training than we usually do, but with all of this information, it really needed the time, especially with all of those fantastic questions. So thank you for sticking it out with us. And as a reminder, you'll be receiving the recording and slides within a week of the event. But before you do go, you will be redirected to our feedback survey. And this is just a quick note. We greatly value everyone's feedback on our events because we really do these events to help you and help educate you. And if we can be doing that better, we really want to know. So if you can take a moment of your time once we log out of here and fill out those couple of questions to let us know how this event went, we would greatly appreciate that. And I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day and a fantastic rest of your week. Thank you all so much for joining us.
Thanks, Amanda. Thanks, everyone.